Hello. We're going to make soap today out of lard. So this is lard from our pigs that we grew over the fall and had processed in January. We have a recipe that we're going to follow, and I'm going to start by weighing the lard and getting it melting. All right, we've got our scale here. It's zeroed. We need 48 ounces or 3 pounds of lard. All right, we have one big chunk, because I realized as I was cutting it up, I was leaving a lot of lard on my hands. So that would subtract from the weight. So I just put it all in, and we'll just be more careful about the stirring and hopefully not burning the lard. So we'll let that sit and get up to, I believe it's 110 degrees is going to be our target temperature. We want the lard to come up to 110 and level out, and then that's when we mix in the lye and water as it's coming down to 110. Because as you add the lye to the water, it chemically reacts and gets hot. So we're waiting for that to get hot and then cool, and then we mix them together. All right, we're gonna measure out our lye. We already have our water measured out and in a glass container, and we're gonna measure our lye into another glass container, and then go outside and add the lye to the water. If you add the water to the lye, there is a small amount of water and a great amount of lye, and the chemical reaction will get out of control and very quickly heat up and possibly explode a little bit. So you always add your lye to the water to reduce the reaction. I am wearing gloves. Any water, just like I talked about before, any water that touches the lye and the lye and water will cause a chemical reaction, even the sweat on your skin. So always gloves. If anything splashes, we do have the vinegar right here already open next to the sink to wash it off with. So we got our lye from through Amazon from California Soap Supply. They were just one of the more common sellers on Amazon. It also came with silicone soap mold, which is not enough for what we're going to do today, but we'll talk about how we're going to mold it after we get everything mixed. So we'll measure this out and then be outside for the mixing, and we'll take its temperature then. Okay, so we're outside on the porch. It is raining today, otherwise we'd get a little bit farther out, but that water's just gonna affect what we're doing. So we've got our water, and we're gonna add our lye, and I did bring a spoon to stir it around. So we'll kind of do this gently. I've got you can see a little bit of that's gonna smell. So that's not just steam, that's the chemical reaction and the heat coming off. So that's where your fumes are gonna be, your vapor. There's a little bit of lye in there, and I've got gloves on, so I'm just gonna get that out and continue stirring until everything's dissolved. And you can see a little bit of the condensation on the edges here, so we are getting some heat. So the reaction is taking place. It's almost all dissolved. You can kind of see. And from what I've seen and read, this could get up to about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to check it now and see where we're at and see how high it is. And it went right up to, we're at 174. 170, nope, we hit 180. 184. So we'll give that a little time, let it cool off. All right, we are just right at temperature, so we're at 110 on the fat, so the lard, and about 110, 115 with the lye. Right now we have a couple little testers of essential oil. So we've got 2 little peppermint testers we're going to put in. It may not be a whole lot in the end, but we're going to try it just to use these. So I'm adding those to the fat before I add the lye. And I'll count the drops just to see if I can see them. We'll get some scissors. We'll say that was 5-ish drops. And I can smell the peppermint. Okay, we are ready to add it together. We've got everything at about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to add the lye mix to the fat and oil mix. You can kind of see it starts a cloudy change. Add all that in there. And with lard soap, it will take a while to get to a trace stage if you mix by hand. I've seen other people reference 2 to 3 hours if you are mixing by hand. Whereas if you had more of a essential oil soap or one that was not of natural fat, lard or tallow, it would trace a lot sooner. But we are going to use a dedicated hand mixer and mix it until we get a trace. We're going to mix and stir. All right, so we've been mixing now for 5-6 minutes, and we've got a very light trace. If I can get out of my shadow here, you can kind of see it's just tracing and staying on top. I'm going to go a little bit more, maybe another minute. All right, we're ready to pour our soap into our molds. We have the silicone mold and a little homemade mold from a cookie sheet and a plastic bag. I'm going to scrape the sides. We've got a very nice thick trace. We're going to pour, I'll do the big mold first. Well, I'll try to spoon it into the little mold. One. So we'll just, on the big mold, we're going to pour it in, then cut it up after it sits for about 12 hours. All right, so it's been about 12-ish hours since we poured our soap. Throughout the day, we've been touching it just to kind of see where we're at. About 6 hours in, it was, you could leave your fingerprint in it and it would stay. A little bit later than that, it started to get harder to the touch. Right now, it reminds me kind of like almond bark type texture. We did a little bit of an impression of a toy chicken just to kind of see how that would come out, just to be curious mostly. You can kind of see some detail in there. So if you had a silicone mold that was the mold of a shape, it would take on that form. So I'm going to try and pop some out of this silicone mold first. All right, we're going to try to pop out our very small single-use bar of soap here. I did take the back of this. It's just a plastic shopping bag that you get way too many of at the store from our favorite retailer. So we'll pop that out. So this was a 5-pound batch. Excuse me, just about 4-ish pounds. So we've got still a bit slick on the back. That's the texture from just a plain sack. There's no oil on it except for the soap. It was just a plain plastic sack. So what we'll do, set it down here, and I just have this Silpat out that we've had for a while. We washed it with soap and it tastes like soap. You put a cookie on here, it tastes like soap. So we're going to use it for our soap. Maybe it will make our soap taste like cookies, but I doubt it. So I'm just getting that ready, and then just kind of take some of these edges off like that. Clear some of those. Here we have one of our molded bars, kind of as a measurement. And it's very easy to cut. And we'll kind of eyeball the halfway mark there. Have our long bars of soap. Just eyeball, looks like maybe we'll get 3 like that, and set them up. We'll try to set them up vertically, but they're a little thin. If we had a different mold, these would be a little bit easier to cut, because they would come out stacked like that. So you just need to make one cut to make a bar. But this was our first try, so we are improvising in some ways. So we've got a little bit of, you can trim it just like that. It trims like really thick Crisco right now, or frozen lard, but over time this will harden nicely and make a nice hard bar. Again, after this cures, we'll just go along with, if you want, a razor blade, a butter knife, anything that will kind of create an edge to square up those more homemade looking edges. If you're into homemade looking edges, I guess it's a perfect. So there's our soap making for today. We started out with just about 3 pounds of lard, 6-ish ounces of lye, and 18 ounces of water. We do have a recipe we followed. We over-fatted the recipe, so it should be nice and extra safe because we used more lard than needed. So we're at like a 5%, 5-6% fat The other thing, let's count. So we have 6 pre-made bars, and we made 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16 small cookie sheet bars. So we'll be back to this in a week or two. We'll kind of check it day by day as well and see how it goes, how long it takes to cure. Hopefully it will be the consistency of a nice hard soap, possibly like an Irish Spring type really hard bar, not like a Dove bar that just kind of fades away. Those are extra soft. And all these little scraps, that's good to use as soap too. You could use these now. They would just go really quickly because of the water content still in them. They're not hardened off and fully cured. They are soap at this point, and we should be done.